parents want to do what they think is best for their children. So they have very good intentions. But good intentions alone are not enough to get the results. Before she could get a job, the dad offered her a position at his business. And by her own admission, she was disrespectful of time. She had no commitment. She was the boss's child. So she didn't care much. She just showed up and expected to be paid. What the daddy did next was amazing.
Yes, welcome to the Revenge of the Forsaken Gods, and I am your host, Andrew Balongo Opere. And have you ever wondered, what to do when you're in a crisis and you're trying to move from one place in your career to another place in your career? Or you're in a particular age group and you just notice life is changing and you wonder, what do you do in order to move to the next step? Well, to answer this question, I've managed to bring along a transitions coach. He's also a corporate trainer and a executive and life coach. Now, he's had experience working on the 5 continents on the globe, and some of his clients are the Kenya Education Fund Board, the African Development Bank, and L'Oreal, amongst the myriad of companies that he has worked for. And he has been very impactful. And an interesting fact about him is he's an animal lover. This guy loves cats. I tell you, when you say love, not just one cat. And he's even managed to have even his daughter love animals. This guy has not just 1, 2, 3. He has 9 cats. So, without further ado, the person with more lives than cats, and he has worked with people from all over the world across 5 continents. Welcome to the show, Anthony PW Wachira.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you for that intro.
Hey, it's the real deal, And I'm just honored, and tell me, before we start off, what's up with the cats? Even 9, I think is the minimal number. You said you had more.
Yeah, we actually have had 11, maybe even 12, if I recall correctly.
Wow.
And it started with we rescued a stray, thanks to my daughter, and the stray got pregnant, and one of the kittens became an adult and got pregnant. One thing led to another, and we have 9 cats now. Yeah, but we are also generous for other cat lovers who don't have and can find one that they like from amongst our litter. We are willing to share.
Okay, so you heard that. If you're looking to have a cat within your family, hit up Tony Wachira. He'll be able to sort you out. And apart from just being a cat lover, let's go back to the beginning. Just being a transitions coach. What is that, and how did you get into that?
Thank you, Andrew. So, transitions, in the simplest form, or in the simplest explanation that I use to share about transitions, is a shift or something that affects something that is life-changing. And for a young person, it could be for them becoming a teenager, the changes that happen during puberty. For a high school child is the transition from high school into university. For university graduate is moving from being under the care of your parents to getting out there and starting to look for work and all the issues that come around that. All those are life-changing situations. For a company, it could be going through restructuring, it could be going mergers. For an adult, it could be getting married or getting kids, losing loved ones. All of those things are transitions because they affect your life and they have a prolonged, they usher you into a new season. So I help people make those transitions and teams make those transitions smooth and figure out how to find their value and thrive. Why I love doing that is because I think when I look at my own life, I have gone through a fair amount of transitions. I began work immediately after Form 4. 3 days after finishing my KCSE, I was employed. I was working at a Kenchik. I was behind the scenes, making sure that the potatoes were peeled and cleaning the dishes. It was back-breaking work. I had just come from school. I smelled like potatoes the whole day long. I hated that smell. My shoes were wet whole day long. It was difficult, but it taught me so many things. I learned how to work with people. I learned how to respect my elders. I improved my work ethic. Then I got a step up. A few months later, I got a different job as a waiter. This one was better. I was customer facing. I had a uniform, not the best uniform, but I had a uniform. I got tips. So those were life-changing times for me. I had not even gone to college and I had learned how to make some money. Then I went to college. Yeah, go ahead, Andrew.
No, just like, wow.
You were going to ask me something. Oh, cool. And then after that, I remember that the first time I went to college, I went to pursue something that I didn't really like, but I obeyed my parents. And when I got out, I went back to college now as an adult, as a man making his own money and studied what I wanted to study.
So let's
then
go
I
back.
Got a job,
what is it that you studied first, the first time around? And then what did you study the second time around?
So the first time around, I studied something called electrical engineering, and I am not very scientific and struggled through it. I completed it. It was a diploma. It was a 3-year diploma. I completed it. Actually, it was not in vain because it helped me get my first real job. And through that, I was able to make some changes in my career. Plus, in my life today, I like it when I work with engineers. I know how to engage with them. I can speak their language because I went through something. There's a similarity in the past that I can draw from. So I actually don't believe it was a wasted experience, nevertheless, but that's not what I wanted to pursue. So after that, I had always wanted to do something in media, or at least when I was growing up, I thought that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to stand in front of a camera. So I pursued media studies. I did creative writing. I did journalism, but I was doing some distance courses. I wasn't doing them here in Kenya. But I went back to do a degree in business management. So I studied business management after that. And later I went back I did a postgraduate diploma at USIU that was sponsored by Colorado State University, which was in entrepreneurship. So and at that time I kind of knew that I wanted to get into business. So yeah, that's what I pursued later.
Wow. Now I'd love to unpack just a little bit of this journey before we move forward. Now, you said that even though you didn't appreciate electrical engineering, there were a few changes or a few things that it helped you despite not liking the experience. Like you said, it gave you your first job. But apart from your first job and giving you the skill to speak with other engineers when you're now training them or interacting with them, what were the other positive aspects that that experience helped you with?
Going through the process, of course, I didn't see the positive aspects until a bit later. In fact, I was very rebellious. That was one of the period of my life that was very rebellious because I felt like I was being boxed in. I was being coerced to do something I didn't want to. But even in terms of friendship, I made some friendships that have stood the test of time. They are few, but at least they are friends that we speak to date. besides that, I got to appreciate other people and other occupations. It allowed me to see what that field is like and to appreciate different passions, because the people that I was in school with really loved what we were doing, and some pursued careers in that line. I have met them, they are happy, they are fulfilled. When I tried working in that line, I was not happy, I was not fulfilled. And even when I did get a job eventually, or jobs, I actually got a way of leaving that line and getting into something different in the company that I was working in. So that was another transition. But I don't want to jump into a different question yet, because I was answering what I learned. So I learned to appreciate that we are very different, and that our passions are different, and that people, what I might not like or what I might be weak at, someone else can be somebody else's strength. Maybe some says areas of weakness and vice versa. Because I really struggled in that industry, whereas some other people, and they have gone on to make careers and to enjoy what they do. So it has helped me appreciate how different we are, and the whole idea of this for me kind of began at that time, to see we are offered the same thing. Some people are ecstatic, while others are not. So yeah, it has helped me appreciate that we are different like that.
That's awesome. Sometimes, we might be going through a situation that we're not, totally enjoying, but there are advantages that if we can just stop to see, just the perspectives that it gives us, we can now even allow that to serve us. And now,
Agreed.
like you're working, in this job, and how did you make that decision that you wanted to do media?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what exposed you to media that you're just like, you know what? I actually want to go to school for media,
Mm-hmm. So, very interesting question. When I was little, this were the days of KBC. So my dad pointed out a gentleman who was reading the news, and he said that was my classmate. And when he was little, he wanted to be a broadcaster. And I thought, wow, that's amazing. He was doing exactly what he wanted to do. My passions in school, I was good in communication. I loved English. I liked Kiswahili, but I was really good in English and arts. I was not good in math, and I was not very good in sciences. If you were to ask me where I thought my career would end, it looked obvious that I was heading to the arts. It was that when I was growing up, it was the age where all parents wanted you to be a doctor, a pilot, an engineer, an architect. There were some branded careers. But I didn't want any of those. I felt that I wanted to do something that was in my area of strength, because I was good in communication. And the one that I thought was the best career, based on what I knew at the time, was broadcast journalism. I thought I wanted to read news. So that's why I wanted to get into media.
Now, did you have the conversation with your dad or, your parents, like, you guys forced me through this path. I did not want to do electrical engineering. Now that I'm making my money, I'm going to learn what I want. I know it can be a pretty tough conversation, and I've heard stories of how people have actually said, you know what, Dad, here's your degree. Mm-hmm. Now I'm going to do what I want. So that's a challenge. Mm-hmm. We really can't. We don't know how to have this conversation with our parents, because maybe our parents are very authoritative. They're not open-minded. Mm-hmm. So how was that conversation for you? Or you didn't have that conversation because now you're making your own money. I'm assuming probably you might have moved out. So you just decided, I'm just going to school and just doing media.
Okay. So I tried to have the conversation before. And like most young people, I have come to learn that it's not what you say, it's how you say it. Then I didn't know how to say it. So I am coming to my parents and saying that this is not what I want and kind of trying to force my way. My parents are doing this, whatever course they want me to take. They believe it is the best decision for me. So in hindsight, I don't blame them too much. They thought they were doing good by me. So we were both wrong. They were wrong in sending me in that direction, but I was also wrong in the way I approached it. So the conversation did not go very well. And since I was not going to pay for myself, I had to bow to the pressure because...
Do you think you can, I know it might be tough, but do you think, can you sort of remember how the conversation went like? Obviously you won't remember it word for word, but, just, it's one thing to say that you did it wrong, but, as someone who is a trainer, you're so used to setting up a scenario where someone does something and then now you can give them feedback and say, okay, this one you did a little bit wrong.
Yeah. I remember because I was freer with my mother, I said, I'm not going to that school. I told her, I'm not. I don't want to study that, and that's that. And she said, no. And then my father laid down the law.
Wow. Yes, definitely no parent is going to tolerate their younger ones speaking to them like that.
Yes. I had no money, and I'm here saying, no, I'm not going there. I want to go there, not there. And it went south for me. And when that checked in and he laid down the law, I went to the same place I had said I would not go.
Now, fast forward to when, you're actually doing this media thing. Did you have an extra conversation with them, or you didn't have any patch-up conversation where you say, I'm sorry, okay, but, I think I should have spoken to you better. I didn't know how to approach this subject with you?
Really?
Okay.
Now that you mention it, no, we never revisited that conversation. I felt I was the one that was aggrieved. And I was rebellious. But I went through my time in college and I completed the course. And when I got a job, it's when I realized that I'm not actually happy doing this. It's not something that I want to continue doing all my life. And I thought, I'm making some money. Let me look online and see what I can study. And I studied mass media. I studied creative writing. I studied some courses.
Mm-hmm.
And
what are these some courses? Someone listening might be curious, just to find out, they might have heard you speak and experience your skill level, and might be curious to know because probably the courses you're taking are not common. They might be told, I want you to do electrical engineering.
So I remember a friend of mine who knew that I was passionate about journalism and mass communication. There was a short course offered by Daystar, and it was in conjunction with a development partner. I can't remember who they were. CEDA is an NGO, so they were working together with Daystar. So they offered a short course. They were training people to write and highlight, to actually communicate and highlight environmental matters. So they were using the media to highlight environmental issues, to get people to take action and to stop all this wanton pollution from the grassroots. So I went for that short course and I loved it. 2 years later, I went for a second, like a level 2 of the same. So those ones were local, and we were being trained by Daystar faculty. We were trained how to shoot videos, how to edit videos, and we went and did practical coursework. We went to, I remember I think it was the second level where I went to Mlolongo and I was a director. And we shot a video that was actually used in the environmental cleanup at Mlolongo. So we went there, we interviewed people, we shot we shot videos there to highlight the problem there for them, and used that to help them become more aware of that they should actually take care of the environment. And I love that. I enjoyed that so much. But that was not enough to get me a job in the mainstream media. Obviously, it was a short course. There were short courses, and that's why now I ventured now into looking for courses that I would take while working. And I got some schools in the UK. Actually, they used to advertise a lot in the Nation those days. They were called the Writers Bureau College of Journalism. So my first real complete course I took from the Writers Bureau, they were calling it a comprehensive writing course. I still have the material here. And later I saw they also had a business writing course. So I did, those were diplomas. So I did those. By that time I was knee deep in a different job. And I think I had given up the dream of working in a media house.
So currently at this point, what work were you doing?
Yes, good. So this is very interesting because it ties in with the earlier story of transition. So after graduating from college with my electrical engineering diploma, I worked for a construction company. It was called Mugoya Construction. That was, they were doing some road in my county of Nyeri. So I got a job there. I worked there for a year.
And what were you doing?
My contract ended. Eventually I started as they were calling me a high power electrician. So my job was to deal with, they'll have a lot of connections. They have a lot of work on the construction site that requires lighting and machines that require an electrician. I was so new, to be very honest, I was not good at it. That's the truth. I was not good at it. And I found this senior. My senior was experienced. He was good. He knew this place like the back of his hand. And he didn't like me much. He didn't like me much. So I remember the first day that I reported, I mean, this is crazy. I came in dressed like I was going for an interview. So I have a nice shirt. I didn't have a jacket, but I had a nice shirt and a nice pants, dress pants, and some nice shoes. This guy made me walk through thin spaces that were full of dust. The construction site is very dirty. I didn't have a dust coat. You should have seen me an hour into the job, an hour into my work day. He made sure I was jumping through windows. He made sure that I was going in between the generator and the container that was full of dust. My goodness. It was hazing, man. That was my introduction to the world of work. But lucky for me, there was another gentleman there who was into mentorship for some, in a weird way. He just wanted to mentor someone. So when I was being taken through orientation, he was doing the work of, he was operating a plant called the asphalt plant, the one that mixes the tarmac.
And
he said, I want this guy. Yeah, it's a big tube. Yes. So he said, I want this kid. He asked me a couple of questions. He brought out some diagrams. He just wanted to test my knowledge. I said, what is this? And I named it. What is this? I named it. He said, okay, looks like you actually went to school. So he asked the electrician, I want this guy. Can I have him work with me here at the asphalt plant? The electrician was glad to release me. He didn't like me anyway. So I kind of got a better deal working at the asphalt plant because the cubicle was closed. So there was less dust and I was operating buttons and a big, it was fun at the beginning. I used to say it's just the thrill of man and machine. With a few buttons, I could create an earthquake because I could just press it and then the whole the machines would start rotating and the place would shake. I love that feeling.
No, you remind me of all these movies, where we see the villain. We're like, ha 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 ha! I can change the world with the power of a button.
That was me, man. That was me. Yeah. So after a year, I was laid off because of completion of works, and I was jobless again. So the next job that I got was in Nairobi, and now I was working with a multinational. I was working with DHL Express.
Okay, so before we get into DHL Express, allow me to rewind back and then come back forward to that. So, okay. You mentioned that you enjoyed learning, about environmental issues. What were the key main learnings of doing that program? Like, what did they highlight that? What are people not doing when they're talking about the environment? Where are they failing? And what were three big learnings that you got from that program that maybe you could share with us, regular normal people, that we need to know, but we don't need to go to this environmental program to be exposed to it?
Okay, I look for three. One of the things that I learned and that I practice, it's as simple as don't litter. I practice that. I've taught my daughter that. And I'll give you a nice example. We went to visit her grandpa. And her grandpa is actually a very clean guy. This day, I don't know what got into him, or he's developed a habit. He put a bit of trash from his car in a little plastic, was it even plastic? I don't remember, a little bag. And when we were driving, he tossed it somewhere. He got a tongue lash from his grandchild about littering. I was having a field day because I'm trying to pretend that I can't hear what's going on as he's trying to explain, and she's not letting up until at some point I had to intervene and say, all right, okay, sweetie, let's leave grandpa now. Because he threw it outside. Because we don't do that where I come from. That she doesn't know any other way. So the first thing that we can all do anywhere is don't litter. So what does that mean? It means that when I carry a plastic bottle, when I buy something, I carry my trash with me and go and dispose it myself. So the ways of disposing, unfortunately, are not very effective because we don't have all the equipment. Our landfills they don't work the way that they should. But I learned this, that the environment has got a carrying capacity, which I've never forgotten. So that if I burn trash, my little trash, and I don't, the environment can take that kind of abuse. That's not too much abuse, because smoke is not good and burning plastics is not a good idea, but the environment does have a carrying capacity. It means it can take that. So we have disposed of that trash, and the trees are going to give us oxygen, and the environment has a way of cleaning itself. There's a carrying capacity. Our problem is that sometimes we put, like Dandora, we put trash in the same place for so long, it is beyond the carrying capacity of that environment. So now it becomes a problem. So if we can dispose of our own trash ourselves, I think that's a good way. And then separation of trash. If you live in a place where you can separate your trash, that is a big one. So that if something is biodegradable, you throw it where it can rot and become part of the soil. If it is not biodegradable, then you find the best way to dispose that. There are some places in Nairobi where they actually separate, and you can go and toss those there if you live near there. If it is yourself, you can. There are people who collect plastics for resale or for whatever. You can keep those aside and give those to them. I have done that in many of the places I have lived. I separate my trash and I don't litter. So those are two things. I don't have a third one, but those are things that anybody can do: separating your trash and disposing it yourself, and not littering, carrying it. If it's a bottle, it's not too difficult. If I was carrying it when it had a soda in it or water in it, by all means, I can carry it when it is empty. Oh, there's one last thing, especially for water. instead of buying bottled water all the time, you can invest in one good bottle. There's the correct plastic. I forget what it is called. There's good plastic that does not give you the plastic poisons that contaminate your water. So you could buy that and be filling that with water and carrying it with you if you walk, if you have a bag.
Yes, what we can do is, you can research that and give it to me later so I can add it in the show notes below for those who are interested in knowing that so that they can be able to get that later on.
Okay, I'll do that.
Yes, and also you mentioned there's a place where you can take this trash to after you've separated it. For those who want to know where that place is, locally here in Nairobi, that is. Where is that?
Okay. I was talking about different places, depending where you live. If some malls have got plastics, they've got paper, and they divide their trash into 3. So it's a lot of trouble, and not many of us are willing to go through that trouble. But you could do that especially for the sake of that trash that is not biodegradable, because if it is biodegradable, you can find places to take it depending on where you live. If you live in a concrete jungle, now that's too bad because there are not many places where you can take that. So I was thinking of malls when I was talking about places you could take, because those are not too far from where we live. Yes.
All right. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
And yes, now we can move, before we come back to DHL story. How did you get this job for the construction, considering that you didn't have any experience at all? And you know how getting a job without the qualification is very difficult.
So at least I had done attachments while I was in college, and I knew a couple of things. In my view, I knew the simplest things. This is crazy. I went through a 3-year course and I didn't come out knowing how to do the job I was being trained for. Through networks, I like to use that word because my mom had done some work for one of the bosses at the company, and they had gotten to know each other. And she asked him, I have a young son who is looking for work, and this is what he studied. And he said, okay, I'll see if there's work for him. And there was a slot for a junior electrician. So the paper is the one that got me 2 things: my college education and the networks, because my mom knew somebody there. She asked him if I could get a job there. And lucky for me, they sent me to go see the foreman at the site. And they told me, okay, yeah, you can report on a certain date. So that's how I began. So I attribute that to 2 things. At least, even if I didn't know how to do it, I had a paper that said I did. And then there was a network of connecting me to someone in there who allowed me to go see the foreman and be allowed to come. After all, I possessed papers that were saying that I could do the job.
True.
Until I got there and realized it was harder than I thought. I didn't know how to do that job. Yes.
Wow, and I think that's one of the challenges of our, let me not say school system, but they don't teach you what's in the real world. So by the time you get there, I think, even with the amount of resources, school has, I believe it does have the capacity to at least expose you to real world situations, at least that you're sort of ready, whether it's 20%, at least within the range of 20 to 50%. You can't be fully ready for the real world, but I'm just saying task wise. So
I agree.
And and I think another thing that they don't prepare you for is that sometimes the work that you do is project based, because we talk about having a stable job, So we're thinking, oh, once I have this, I'm going to have it for X amount of years. But then, once, how did you behave now once your construction job was over? Because that was the nature of the assignment. By reality, there was no other opportunity to continue on. How did you were you able to transition to now get the DHL assignment?
Actually, it took a while before I got the DHL assignment, and I tried a couple of things. I produced a music album and tried to sell that.
What's the name of the album, and what kind of music?
It was gospel music, and the name is "It's Just a Storm. It Will Pass Away."
Wow! Now, did you have like a gospel name, or you just went by, Anthony PW Wachira?
I did, because I didn't continue. I did have a gospel name at the time. The production was by Priceless. So I learned that the name Anthony actually means priceless. So I used that as the band name. I was doing it with my girlfriend at the time, who is my wife today. So we actually produced an album in the early 2000s. So
wow.
Although before then I tried to produce a newsletter. Yeah, before that I actually tried to produce a newsletter for young people. So I was still into development of skill development, kind of, because I was a youth leader in church. So I was still kind of in the, and this I was doing even as I was finding my way and looking for a career. I was still developing as a volunteer.
Yes.
So from some of the issues that I was seeing with the young people, I'm very proud of, because I did it for 3 months and I broke even all 3 months. But I couldn't raise a team to work with, and it was too much work for one guy. I had a dream of producing an album, and
what's the level of work that it's entailed in that?
So I didn't have contributors, so I had to write most of the content myself. I didn't have money, so I had to do the editing, I had to do the designing, I had to take it to the printers, I had to distribute it myself, I had to collect the money. So it was a one-man show. I could get some people to distribute it in their churches, but I was needed to come and introduce it and say a little bit about it. So I didn't have any business mentor or a mentor of any type. So if I had something like that things would have been very different. So when the going got tough and I could record music recording was much easier than selling the newsletter. So I opted to do the music recording because it had more perks than writing the newsletter. I was doing it with my girlfriend. So there was that. It was easier in terms of the workload on me. It was easier and fun. Singing is fun. The streets trying to go to this church and that church and the other one was difficult. It was hard. So I elected to take the easier route, but it was not sustainable, because now after producing it, there is a selling part, which was not easy. Yes, so it didn't go too far, but I still have the music.
Wow. Yes, one of these days we would love to hear this. This is, I'm sure just like the way you've shared your love of animals with your daughter, you created music that inspired, and like you've mentioned here, it's one of the things that helped you solidify your relationship with your to-be wife at the time.
That's true. But something interesting, Andrew, that I neglected to mention, that newsletter that I was publishing I had called it The Influential. And that's in the year 2002, I think. It was called The Influential. today, that's the name of my business. My business is called The Influential.
Wow.
If you can see this.
Yes, I can see it.
So it inspired, yes. So it inspired me when I decided to name my practice. I call it The Influential.
How did the name come about?
I remember trying to look for names, and I was influenced by John Maxwell's maxim of leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. And I was, after reading his 2021 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership, and I remember that I was looking to inspire young people to not lead by title, because my leadership, the leadership role I had was not per se by title. It was, I had volunteered and I had been accepted. I'd been accepted as the leader of these young people. And it was mainly because of my gifts, and I thought that I wanted to replicate that kind of mindset where you don't have to wait to be appointed. And I was really young, and in hindsight, solid. You have to apply the word influence somewhere there. And I think that's how The Influential was born. Because I had suggestions even from my mother that I still remember. My mom had called it the spotlight. She may not recall, but I recall that's the suggestion she had given me. I elected to go with The Influential.
Wow.
So I liked it so much. I have now picked it up as the name of my business, and my website is theinfluential.co.ke.
Wow.
So you can see I really like it. Yes. Yeah.
So talking about influential, you mentioned, allow us just to go a little bit back before we come forward again. You mentioned that your first mentor that you really mentioned was a mentor to you was the asphalt manager, if I can call him that.
Yes.
What was it that he imparted onto you, if you can recall? What are 3 things that you can just pick out? And also, let's be honest, the guy that didn't like you also helped you find clarity with this mentor person. So maybe what are 3 lessons you learned from the electrician person, and then what are 3 lessons you learned from your asphalt melter? How are they influential to your life?
Wow. Andrew, I love your questions, by the way. Let me just say that, because they are helping me think of some things that I never thought of. So thank you very much for that.
Oh, thank
you. To be very honest.
Welcome.
Yes. Yeah. So I learned something from the electrician, that it doesn't have to be kind. This gentleman didn't know me, but he was totally unkind. Then I get to this other little office, and this other man does not know as well. But he decides to take me under his wing and treat me very differently. Same location, they're meeting me for the first time. They don't know me. One of them decides to take me under his wing. The other one is happy to kick me to the curb. You go. And to be very honest, I was very happy how things panned out. There are still good people out there. And I learned this, and I could be wrong, but I think that there are people who like you for nothing. And I think that there are people who dislike you for nothing. They don't have a reason. They just met you and they like you. There are others who meet you and they don't like you, like it happened to me that day. So I choose to give people the benefit of doubt. And I have learned over the years something, I call it, it's empathy. I don't know where you're coming from. I'd rather have positive thoughts about you and be wrong than the other way around. Hold negative thoughts about you, I just met you, and then be right. I'd rather the other way. I'd rather have believed that you're a good human, that we could work together, that this is awesome, and then be proved wrong. I would rather that. I'll give everybody a chance. When if I can, not in an every social, when somebody will reach out to and I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. Even when students will just reach out, and even if I forget to respond and I notice that I forgot, I will still make the effort to respond to them. I have learned that it costs me nothing. And sometimes I'll even offer tips, advice for free because it costs me nothing to do that. And especially for these young people who are coming out of school and into this world of work, I think it would be nice for them to see some kindness because the world is really rough.
Yes, now that you're talking about kindness, I'm going to move forward a little bit and then come back. And as you've mentioned, you've written several articles on LinkedIn. You know, for example, there's one that you've spoken about. Are you aged between 18 to 35 and you're anxious about the direction your life is taking, especially when you compare yourself with your peers on social media? And you talk about quarter-life crisis is real. And we're used to hearing this with, with people when they get old, midlife crisis in their 50s. But talking about quarter-life crisis, tell me more about that.
Wow, I love this. I'm still passionate about young people. That has never changed. And I came across this crisis from reading and from research. And it is a crisis that affects largely young people from the age of 18. Interestingly, it can go up to the mid-30s. And we actually were in a call. We had done a webinar with another lady that I work with on this project from South Africa. And we were astonished. One of our participants, and they were coming in from Europe, and they were 38. 38 sounds like someone who's approaching midlife. And they were saying that their crisis is not the midlife, it is the quarter life. And the quarter life is defined, the definitions are interesting, but it's a confusion state. So you are in confusion. So think about a young person who is coming out of college where they were shielded, where they were protected. Then they are coming into the world of work. So the first thing that hits them, and I remember this happened to me, is taxes. I remember I was told that I would get paid X amount of shillings, and my payslip comes and I'm getting X minus B. And I'm calling the accountant. Why did you remove the B? Nobody ever took time to tell me, to explain to me about taxes. And this guy, he was mean. He was telling me, do you use roads? Do you use infrastructure? And that's usually it hits you like a ton of bricks. You have to pay taxes.
I'm so sorry. It's so funny. It's funny, but it's not funny. But yeah, that taxes thing is one of that shock, and you're just like what the F, I'm told the salary is this, but take home is different.
And then you get less. Yes. So without proper mentorship, and that's the differentiator. You don't get someone who's explaining this. They're telling you, they're paying you 50K. Wow, you're excited. You get your 50K on top of the slip, but down the bottom line is different from the top line, and you're thinking, how now? And you are depressed. So that's just one of the issues that these young people have to deal with. Then there is all these expectations from parents from a different generation. Our parents, like I was telling you earlier, there is what our parents consider success. There's want the career trajectory to look like, so pressure that comes from our parents. Then there is our comparisons of our lives and the lives of our peers, because we went to school together. This one, they seem like their life is going the way they had planned, while mine looks like it's taking a different trajectory. There's those comparisons that social media does not help a lot, because there's a lot of fakeness. A lot of the younger people will present a life that is not real, and we are trying to keep up with that. And there's also the fear of missing out. So we are always these young people are always on social media, and instead of that doesn't help them much. If anything, it brings more anxiety. It takes away their attention, and they have been accused of refusing to grow up. In fact, the research out there about these young people refusing to grow up is overwhelming. A word that they have been given, they've been called because Peter Pan is more a character in the West. He refused to grow up. He was not growing old. So they've been called that. So some of them will leave home and come back home. Some of them will stay home for long. So they seem like they are refusing to grow up because of the things that they exhibit. In the workplace, they don't understand deadlines. I was speaking with a friend the day before yesterday, she's a lecturer and a consultant. And I was asking the very question about quarter life. And I was asking what he has seen. And she was telling me that these young people have been told they are special, which is not a bad thing, but the way that messaging has gone overboard, so that when they come to the workplace and they are not treated, quote unquote, as special, they feel like it doesn't work. And so they're not committed, they're not disciplined, they're not willing to work hard, so they're not willing to grow up. So when they find them crisis of what does life look like for me up front. So they look ahead, and there's a blur. So they're very confused because of all of these issues when they put together.
And when you're saying
I think I've given a winded, yeah.
No, I appreciate you, what you've given. And, I just have a question. Something came to mind just as you started sharing that. But isn't this a generational problem combined with what I would call the attitude of the electrician guy? And the way that tax guy spoke to you, I think now that's the attitude of the adults that are in positions of power, especially in learning institutions. Because you can see, just like you've said, in that environment, that one same environment of the construction company, this one person, imagine if this electrician was the president as opposed to the asphalt guy. You could see how you could really thrive under the asphalt guy, where if you could have problems, it's easier to address the problems, but because of the attitude of the electrician guy, your problems just go out of control. So if you're, especially the things you've cited, discipline is a learned skill. I watch discipline by watching you doing your thing, and I simulate it. Discipline is not different than walking. How do kids learn walking? By observing the adults, they try. And then when they fall down, what do you tell the kid? Stupid, you don't know how to walk. No parent tells their kid that. Parents are like, yeah, go on, try until you get it.
You can do it.
I feel our adult industry have dropped the ball in how a human learns those particular skills they desire out of that human. I don't know. What are your thoughts around that?
I would agree with you 100%. In fact, even the person viewing said this, that I asked her, what would you tell managers of these young people? And that they need to learn that they have a parenting role. So you've hit it head. The very same thing, that you take on a young person, don't expect that they know. And reminiscent of me, when I left college and I had 3 years of training, I hit the industry and I realized I don't know anything. So from the get-go, let's not assume that, and let's not blame them. Let's take them on knowing that we have a mentorship component and a coaching component. We have all different tools to employ. And we don't have to worry whether it's a coaching issue or a training issue or a mentorship issue. We combine them. We can agree. We communicate very clearly. We set our expectations and we set repercussions so that they get into this thing with their eyes open, with understanding. Then we guide them so that we are there to ask questions and to listen without judging, and to advise when we need to advise, and to teach when we need to teach. So I totally agree. I like that you had called it the adult industry. So I'm using that in jest. So the adult industry has to realize that we need to invest a bit more in these young people.
Wow, that's very powerful. I cannot add, and I'm excited that at least you're doing, workshops around this. Is this a one-off, or do you do this often, like after every so often, so that people can get more information about the workshop, so that they can be just taken through this process?
We are currently doing it after every 2 months. We are working to see if we can be able to do it monthly. So it's a continuing training. It's a continuing workshop.
And who is it specifically for? Not just is it just the 18 to 35-year-olds only, or?
Not necessarily. So we will have workshops tailored for managers of 18 to 35-year-olds or managers of this younger generation. And because we've received queries from parents as well, wanting to figure out what's happening with my kids, because they advise, they don't ask questions, they advise. And a lot of times their advice is not being taken by their kids. And that has brought a lot of conflict. So we even hope to target parents to help them sort of bridge that gap so that they can know how to approach this thing.
And from your experience, why do you think that the 18 to 35-year-olds, or whoever is in a position where they are under parent, are not taking their parents' advice?
My experience, and I like this because it relates to my life in a sense. I'll take you back to the story of me wanting to study something different. That hasn't changed much. Parents want to do what they think is best for their children. So they have very good intentions. But good intentions alone are not enough to get the results. Then the other side, the children, they're now more equal. They have more tools, they have more access to information because of the internet and because of just the exposure that's there. And so they are more exposed, they have more options than their parents had. So we are reading from different scripts. And sometimes the way that they will express it will not be received very well. Maybe because of history, maybe because of a barrier in understanding. It could be any of the reasons. So that is one of the things that will bring these conflicts. Now, in my case, I ended up having to follow my parents' advice. I know cases where kids have refused nowadays. In my day, the people that you are saying would bring a degree to their parents and say, this is yours. I know them too, those ones of our time. Now, the younger generation of now, they will jump ship and go live with one of their buddies who has a studio or who is a YouTube influencer or who works online. They have more options. And so the problem is a little bigger now than what we thought we had then.
And just to summarize what we've been talking about, maybe could you say what are 3 mistakes that the adult industry are doing? What can we maybe say also 3 mistakes that the young people, the 18 to 35 are doing, but also let's acknowledge what are three then learning, three takeaways that we can get from this conflict, so to say, or this mismatched perspectives, just to summarize this point.
My view is that the bulk of the blame will fall to the people with authority. So it is the adult industry, the parents, the leaders, whoever is older, because these young people did not bring themselves up. They were brought up by someone. So they were learning the things they were learning from someone. The behaviors that they have picked, all of these things. So I would like to address the parents, and I am a parent. I'd say that we need to invest more in young people than we have been doing. And investing more means investing money, investing time, investing various resources in equipping good citizens who are upstanding, citizens who have good morals, who are just, who are kind, and who understand that the world is complex and are willing to continue learning. We are not doing that. We are busy chasing after money and working hard and learning more, getting more degrees. By the time we are looking back, we have a teenager in the house and we are no longer cool. So they don't listen to us because we were busy outside of the home. So by the time we are coming back, we can't recognize the child. There's no longer a child. This is a teenager or a young adult. So I think that the first thing that parents need to do is to invest, and it's a holistic sort of investment. Another thing that parents need to do is to ask questions without providing solutions immediately. I asked this question to my friend, and she was telling me, when a young person tells you that they are overwhelmed, the first thing that we parents want to say is that, no, you are not overwhelmed. And instead of doing that, we want to find out, why do you feel that way? Or what situations, what has made you come to that conclusion? So to listen with empathy, without judging, without giving a solution just yet. And when we want to give a solution, we ask for permission. May I suggest something? As opposed to shoving it down their throats and making them do this, because the conflict will not end if we keep doing things the same way. So investing and then asking, those are two main ways. And then not comparing ourselves with them too much. Sometimes parents want their children to live their dreams. So we don't have a doctor in this family, and I always wanted to be a doctor, or I had hoped we'd get a doctor, so you will be a doctor, or you will be a lawyer, etc., etc. So I think we need to realize, we parents need to realize that they are unique, they are different, and that they are living in a very different time than the time that we grew up. They are growing up at a very different time. We need to respect those generational cohorts. We need to respect that they actually exist and that there's nothing wrong with any generation, because in particular, the millennials and the Generation Z have not received a lot of love. They have, if anything, they're the subject of the worst jokes. They're the subject of all the negative publicity. But the honest truth is that we need to meet halfway, instead of thinking that our good old days or that our ways are better. It doesn't work like that.
And I think that last thing that you've mentioned, all the hate that the millenniums are getting is actually not even from the millenniums themselves, but from the older people. So I guess, the question needs to be asked, older generation, what is it that you are trying to say that you do not know how to communicate, that you feel putting us down is the answer to make your point? Obviously, there's a difference between us, maybe it's skill level or perspective or what have you. But just because you've made it in the way that you made it, and maybe those opportunities, the way you made it, are not available now. And it's like, I think what we're experiencing is we're trying to navigate this territory and the map has changed and there are no details on the map. Especially from the adults that are talking bad, because they were guided for the most part, or they were supported, and that support that they had is not being given now. So in reality, how can anyone move forward in life without support? I think maybe that's a question just from my eyes, just from what you've shared.
I'll take it. Because what they need more than anything is mentorship. They just need, we all love to be respected. We all want to count. So when we shut them out, when all we highlight is the negatives, and we are not going, the kids that we are going to get are going to be kids. They have to be kids first. So they'll be a different generation. We're not going to get adults becoming kids. So if we realize that and start cultivating the values that we think they should have, at the very least, the values, and mentor them, and it's a good place to begin, as opposed to trying to shape them when they are older, when they are coming to work. And I like that in a sense, some of the problems are still have not changed. Like the fact that we went to college and we came to a workplace without having skills. Luckily for us, because some people had invested some time, we had been trained on work ethics, or we were lucky enough, like me, to get a job immediately after Form 4, which was difficult, which was hard, and taught me a couple of things. Perhaps that molded me to become a person with good work ethic. What about a person who has lived all their life without working? And it's not their fault. Their parents did not give them work. Their parents employed servants for them. They went for holidays. They were not taught the value of work. Then you give them a job. I was talking to a lady, interestingly, Andrew. She was telling me that she went to the UK to study. So by all indications, she had a very good upbringing, and she was privileged. So she came back, and before she could get a job, the dad offered her a position at his business. And by her own admission, she was disrespectful of time. She had no commitment. She was the boss's child. So she didn't care much. She just showed up and expected to be paid. What the daddy did next was amazing. He fired her, like she was terminated. And she was told, now things can't work like this. So she was fired and she was welcome home. So now that you don't have a job, you can move back home. And she took the offer, she moved back home. And then she realized, this life is difficult. So she made amends and went back and asked for her job back, but with a different attitude. And she was given her job back with a new attitude. And she grew to run the same business. So it's amazing that they can be trained. You see, she was coming with a different attitude, and she had been brought up well, but the way she started, so they in other words, they can be formed. But you see, some of them will come and admit to you that if they're not used to something, they will come with their attitudes and they will behave in the wrong way, but they can be shaped.
Wow, that's so powerful, a sense of attitude. In fact, I think you've hit the nail on the head. This attitude of entitlement. I'm not surprised if someone has access to whatever it is they need. Why do they need to apply themselves? Only now, until these privileges are revoked and you are told you have no powers here, you have to pull your own weight. That's when people step up to the plate. So I think, to be honest, a parent's job is very hard. I think it's much difficult than a CEO, in my opinion. A CEO can hire people for this, for that, for this, They can hire a coach like you. You have so many departments.
Yes.
But a parent, they don't know who to hire for what. You have your own biases as a father, as a mother. You think you know the best. You don't have the humility to say, okay, I lack this particular skill set or knowledge in this area. I can pay Coach Tony Wachira for this. Tony, come in and intervene and teach them the skills they need. So I give my hat out to everyone who's a parent out there. I salute you. You have the hardest job on the planet. May you get the help you need to guide those who are under you to the lives that they're able to stand on their 2 feet and make an impact in their lives and in others.
Yes. I agree. Yes.
Thank you for tuning in to the Revenge of the Forsaken Gods podcast. This is the end of part 1, where we have been speaking with Anthony PW Wachira, who is a transformational and transitions coach. Some of the things we have been speaking in this episode are how he did 2 degrees, of which the first one was his parents' choice, some of the learnings that he got from his mentor and his hater, and the quarter-life crisis, amongst many other topics. Stay tuned for part 2, where we'll be talking about how he was forced to rest and how he dealt with grief, how he got into DHL, and comparing the difference between local and multinational companies, and 3 things that hold people back, together with 3 tools that will help you gain control of your life. Thank you very much for staying tuned to the Revenge of the Forsaken Gods. You can watch us on YouTube or listen on your preferred podcast platform, from Apple Podcast, AfriPods to Spotify. If you like anything that you have heard here, please do share a comment on your preferred platform. And remember to like and subscribe at Revenge F Gods, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, or your preferred podcast platform. Thank you and have a great day.